The second company, they had bought a PLL unit from CTI. They were one of my good customers. They built transmitters and receivers for the television industry. But they were going bankrupt. Their product was used very old technologies, very expensive. And in fact, when they finally went bankrupt, this was shortly after I left CTI, and I knew about them because they were my customers at CTI. I bought their assets. I paid $750,000 for all their test equipment, which was probably new anyway, would have been worth a lot more than that. But that business was very interesting. They built transmitters and receivers for the television industry. When you watch television and you see any event going on outside of the studio, that is a reporter standing out there with a microphone, you see events, sporting events going on, all of that is brought to you by transmitters and receivers that are referred to as electronic news gathering. The basic transmitter and receivers are mounted in a truck that I'm sure all of you have seen. It has a big, tall antenna. They jack up anywhere from 25 to 70 feet up in the air. From the truck, it beams it to usually a tower somewhere where it's received, and then it's relayed back down to the studio. So that uses a transmitter and receiver. Again, point-to-point radios. In the studio, the programming is put together, and with either the live video they're getting through this electronic news gathering, along with the reporter and other things, and it's transmitted up to the television transmitter. In the early days, this was on the World Trade Center, so you use microwave links to go from the studio, transmitting the program up to the TV transmitter that then in turn transmits it to your home. So this is what this business was. They built the equipment that transmitted it, that was in the vans, transmitted to the towers. We built the equipment in the towers, built the equipment in the studio, built the equipment that then relayed it up to the TV transmitter. That's referred to as a station to transmitter link, or STL. The other part of the business was using basically the same equipment, but it transmitted video and audio from mountaintop to mountaintop. So this is what the business was that I bought, but it was all very old, antiquated equipment. So we had to sit down and totally redesign that equipment. On the right-hand side, the bigger unit was the unit we inherited from them, which had a very limited functionality. The unit on the left was the new unit, which did so many more things and at a much smaller unit and much lower price, and was just chock full of technology, digital technology all over the place. And that's one of the things that enabled us to compete very successfully with the competition. I actually sold CTI 2 years before I retired from it. I brought in I brought in a CEO to take over because the company had gotten so big that the finances was such that for us to grow to the next stage would have required a lot of money. And again, when you have to put your own assets up and put them even in more risk, I decided, okay, now's the time to get out. We were at the peak of the satellite business. It was peaking out. So from there, it was going to start to go downhill, which meant our orders would start to decrease. Although we had a good engineering team and we're in the process of developing other products so that when that happened, we would still be in business. But so I decided to bring in a new CEO who took over, and I worked with him for 2 years. But in that period, you're no longer, your adrenaline is no longer running as strong as when you're the guy with the skin in the game, as I was. So I decided, set a date and put in my resignation. But before the resignation and in that two-year period, I became familiar with this company, and I had always wanted to build equipment that was bigger, that was more like a transmitter and receiver, because I'd done all that when I was a ham. Mm-hmm. So I figured, why can't I build that equipment and now build a business around it? So that's what motivated me to get involved and buy this business. And I didn't feel like retiring. I was age 55 at the time.
Sure.